You're nice but you're not really relationship material, she shrugged, so I calmly answered, fair enough, and disappeared from her life. 5 years later, I have a beautiful family, and she's alone messaging me that she made the worst decision ever. The coffee in front of me had gone cold long before I realized she wasn't coming back to the table. Clara sat across from me, eyes distant, fingers tracing lazy circles on her cup like she was waiting for courage to form in the foam. I watched her. I'd been watching her for weeks, maybe months, without realizing I was watching the slow fade of something I thought was solid. She finally looked up. "You're quiet again," she said. I tried to smile. "Just tired. Long day." She nodded, but it was the kind of nod that didn't believe me. Then she said it, softly, almost kindly, like she was breaking bad news to a stranger. "I think we should stop pretending." My fingers froze around my cup. "Pretending what?" "That this works," she said, voice flat. "That we're happy. That I'm happy." The air between us shifted. Conversations around us blurred into meaningless noise. I could hear the espresso machine hiss in the background, the clinking of spoons, the laughter of a couple 2 tables over. All of it felt distant. "Okay," I said slowly. "Then tell me what's wrong." She met my eyes for a second, then looked away. "You're safe, Ethan." "Safe," I repeated, trying to process the word. "Is that supposed to be bad?" "You're predictable," she continued, as if she'd practiced this. "You don't take risks. You don't challenge me. Everything about us feels calm. Too calm." I leaned back in my chair, heartbeat heavy in my chest. "Calm? You mean stable? Consistent? The kind of thing people say they want in a relationship? That's not what I want." The sentence landed like a knife. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, eyes still on the cup. "I need passion, excitement, something that makes me feel alive. You're good to me, Ethan. You really are. But you don't make me feel anything anymore." I laughed softly, but it wasn't humor, it was disbelief. "So being treated right is boring now?" "That's not fair," she said. "No, you're right," I replied. "Fair would have been you telling me this months ago, before I started making plans for us. Before I thought you were my forever." "Don't do that," she whispered. "Don't make me the villain." "I'm not," I said. "But if you're walking away, at least be honest about why." She sighed. "Fine. I met someone." I felt my stomach drop, though I didn't flinch. "Who?" "Just someone from work," she said quickly. "It wasn't planned. We started talking and I don't know. He gets me." I took a long breath, staring at her. "He gets you?" "We've been together 3 years, Clara." "I know." Her voice cracked a little. "But somewhere along the way, we stopped growing. You got comfortable. I kept waiting for something to change, and it never did." I nodded slowly. "So instead of talking to me, you found someone else to do it with." She looked at me like I was supposed to understand, like her betrayal was some kind of self-discovery. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she murmured. "You didn't mean to," I repeated, "but you did." Silence filled the space. She looked like she wanted me to argue, to fight for her, to make some grand gesture that would prove her wrong. But all I could do was sit there, feeling a quiet kind of sadness that didn't need noise. "Finally," she said, "I still care about you. You're a good man, Ethan. You deserve someone who loves you the way you love them." I smiled faintly. "You know, that sounds like something people say when they've already left." Her eyes softened, maybe with guilt, maybe with relief. "You'll understand one day." I wanted to ask what that meant, but I already knew. She wanted adventure, chaos, the thrill of something uncertain. And I wasn't that. I never would be. "Does he make you happy?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. "He makes me feel alive." That was all I needed to hear. I looked down at my untouched coffee, the one she'd insisted on ordering for me before the conversation changed everything. "You could have just said you didn't love me anymore," I whispered. She bit her lip. "It's not that simple." "It is," I said. "You stop feeling something, you say it. You don't build another story while this one's still being written. Her eyes glistened, but I didn't believe they were tears for me. I'm sorry, she said again. I nodded. You should be. She pushed her chair back slowly. So, that's it? What else is there? I asked. You've already decided. I just didn't expect you to be so calm. What do you want me to do? I asked, voice low. Beg you to stay? Scream in a cafe until everyone stares? You've already left me in your heart, Clara. I'm just catching up. She looked down, maybe realizing there was nothing left to say. Maybe one day you'll thank me, she whispered. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I'll just learn from this and never make the mistake of loving someone who confuses peace with boredom. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but she didn't. She stood, adjusted her coat, and hesitated for a second, just long enough for me to almost believe she'd sit back down. But she didn't. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said softly. She gave a small, distant smile. I already did. Then she walked out. The little bell above the cafe door chimed as she left. I stared at the space she'd occupied, her half-empty cup still steaming faintly on the table. I wondered how many times I'd sat across from her thinking we had forever. A waiter passed by and asked, "You done with this, sir?" I looked at the cup, then nodded. "Yeah. I'm done." He took it away, and I sat there a while longer, staring at the door like it might open again. It didn't. Outside, the rain had started to fall, soft, steady, indifferent. People rushed by with umbrellas, but I just sat there, letting the moment sink in. I thought of every morning we'd spent together, every small joke, every time she'd leaned into me and said she felt safe. The same word she used now like an insult. Maybe I was safe. Maybe that was my curse. I finally stood, paid the bill, and stepped outside. The air was cold, sharp enough to make my chest ache. As I walked away, I didn't look back at the cafe. I didn't want to. I just kept walking until her voice, her laughter, her words, "You're too safe," became nothing but background noise in the rain. I didn't chase her. I just watched the door close and realized it might never open again. People say you can feel when something good is ending. I didn't. I was too busy believing that love, once found, stayed forever. I met Clara in college, freshman year, philosophy class. She sat 2 rows ahead of me, always with that lazy smile like she already knew every answer but was too polite to say it. One day after class, I caught up to her outside. "You actually listen to the professor," I said, walking beside her. She laughed. "And you actually take notes like it's life or death." "I'm just trying to pass." "Or trying to impress me?" I remember how she said it, half joking, half daring. That was Clara. Every word felt like a test I wanted to pass. We started studying together. Studying turned into coffee, coffee turned into late-night drives where we talked about everything and nothing. "You think love lasts?" she asked once as we sat on the hood of my car under a sky that didn't care about us. "I think it does," I said. "If both people fight for it." She smiled at that. "Then don't stop fighting when it's me, okay?" I didn't. God, I never did. Those were the days that felt like sunlight, cheap apartments, burned pancakes, laughing over takeout, her head on my shoulder while some movie played we weren't watching. She'd hum along to old songs and say, "You're too serious sometimes. You need to live a little." I'd grin. "I'm alive right now." She'd roll her eyes, "That's cheesy. And you love it." "Maybe," she'd tease, but her smile said yes. We were kids pretending to be adults, building a world out of borrowed furniture and blind hope. Years later, when things started to fall apart, I'd replay those moments like they were scenes from a movie I'd watched too many times, still hoping the ending would change. It started small. A few months after she got her new job, her phone began living face down. I remember the first time I noticed. She was on the couch scrolling through something, then she saw me coming and flipped it. "Who was that?" I asked. She smiled. "Just work stuff." "Can I see?" I said, half joking. "Ethan," she said sharply. "Don't start." Start what? Being paranoid. I told you, it's just work. I laughed it off then, told myself I trusted her. I did. But something in the way she said work felt too rehearsed. The next week she started coming home late. Meetings, she'd say. Deadlines. I'd try to make dinner, keep things normal. You should eat first, I'd tell her. I already did. We ordered in at the office. Oh. She'd kiss my cheek, thank me anyway, and head straight for the shower. It's strange how love erodes, not in earthquakes but in raindrops. You barely notice it until you're drenched. One night, I asked her to take a trip with me. Just a weekend, I said. We could go upstate, stay by the lake, disconnect a bit. She didn't look up from her laptop. I can't. Big project coming up. Then next week? I don't know, Ethan. We'll see. You used to love road trips. She sighed. Can we not do this right now? Do what? This guilt trip thing. I'm trying to work. That was the first time she raised her voice at me. It was small, but it cracked something. I went outside, sat in the car, and stared at the steering wheel for 10 minutes. I remember thinking, maybe this is just what happens. People grow up, and things change. When I came back inside, she was asleep on the couch, laptop still open. Her face looked peaceful, and I told myself that meant everything was fine. It wasn't. A few weeks later, I met her for lunch near her office. She looked surprised to see me. You didn't tell me you were coming, she said, closing her phone. I thought I'd surprise you. You shouldn't have, she said quickly, then tried to soften it. I mean, I just have so much going on. I'll only take 10 minutes, I said. Promise. She smiled, but it was tight. Okay, 10 minutes. We ordered sandwiches. She barely touched hers. You seem different lately, I said carefully. Different how? Distant. I'm just tired. Of work? She nodded. Of everything. Everything? Don't twist it, she said. You know what I mean. Actually, I don't. Her jaw tightened. Ethan, not everything is about us. Sometimes people just get tired. Then let me help, I said. That's what we do, right? She looked at me then, not like a lover, but like someone cornered. You can't fix everything. I'm not trying to fix. Yes, you are, she cut in. You always try to fix things. Not everything needs saving. I stared at her, unsure what to say. She glanced at her watch. I really have to get back. And that was that. Lunch ended. She hugged me quickly and left. I sat there alone, her perfume still in the air, wondering how you could love someone so much and still feel like a stranger to them. That night, I lay beside her in bed, listening to the way she breathed, steady, even, far away. I whispered, Clara. She didn't answer. Maybe she was asleep. Maybe she just didn't want to talk. I turned to face the ceiling and thought about the night we met, the laughter, the stupid jokes, the promises we made. I'll never stop choosing you, she'd once said. And I'd believed her. Months passed like that, small fights, long silences, smiles that didn't reach her eyes. I tried to hold on, to be patient. Love was supposed to be patient, right? Then came the night that told me everything without saying a word. It was raining. I was driving home, stuck in traffic, when I called her. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. When I got home, her shoes weren't by the door. I checked the time, 10:47 p.m. She'd told me she had a team dinner. I believed her because believing hurt less than wondering. I waited on the couch, TV on mute, watching the lights from passing cars flash across the wall. At midnight, I heard her key in the lock. You're still up? She asked, surprised. Yeah, I said quietly. How was dinner? It was fine. She didn't meet my eyes. Who was there? Everyone, she said quickly, setting her bag down. Everyone who? Ethan, she snapped. I don't remember the guest list, okay? Okay, I said softly. She exhaled, rubbed her temples. Can we not do this tonight? Please. I nodded, watching her walk toward the bedroom. She paused at the door. I'm just tired. Yeah, I said. You've said that a lot lately. She looked back for a second, like she wanted to say something, then didn't. When the door closed, I sat there in silence. The TV light flickered across her empty cup on the table, lipstick on the rim, faint but visible. That was the night I felt her slipping away. Not because of the secrets or the distance, but because of the quiet. The quiet between us was too loud to ignore anymore. I remember whispering to myself, don't lose her. But deep down, I already had. Are you coming home late again? I asked, watching her slide into her heels near the door. She didn't look up. Yeah, Dylan's team is behind on the pitch. We need to finish tonight. Dylan again, I said quietly. She gave a half smile, like I'd made a joke. He's my coworker, Ethan. Don't start that. I didn't start anything, I said. Just asking. You're asking like you don't trust me. I sighed, leaning against the counter. I just miss when we used to eat dinner together. She finally met my eyes. For a moment, they were empty. You know what's exhausting, she said. Feeling guilty for working hard. I didn't say you should feel guilty. You imply it every time you mention his name. Her tone was sharp, defensive. I wanted to pull her close, to remind her I wasn't her enemy. But instead, I said nothing. She grabbed her bag, muttered something under her breath, and left. The sound of the door closing felt heavier than usual. That night, I stared at her half of the bed. The faint scent of her perfume still lingered, but it felt like it belonged to someone else. I tried to text her, drive safe. She replied hours later, just got home. Tired. Sleep well. No, I miss you. No heart emoji. Just words that looked like obligations. Over the next few weeks, the distance grew like quiet mold. She started sleeping with her phone face down. When I asked about it once, she said, notifications distract me. You know that. But I remembered when she used to giggle at her messages, turning the screen toward me. Now, it was always out of reach. One night, I asked, can we have dinner tomorrow? Just the two of us? She didn't even glance up from her laptop. Tomorrow's tough. Dylan needs me at the office. I forced a laugh. Does Dylan ever go home? She looked up then, irritated. You know, this jealousy thing isn't cute. I'm not jealous, I said softly. I'm lonely. That stopped her. For a second, I thought she might apologize. Instead, she sighed. Ethan, you're overthinking again. You always do this, turn nothing into something. Nothing? I asked. Clara, you barely talk to me anymore. You come home late, you avoid touch, you smile at your phone more than me. Her jaw tightened. You sound paranoid. I sound hurt. She slammed her laptop shut. Maybe you should find a hobby. Something to keep your mind off of, whatever this is. I stared at her, trying to understand if this was still the woman who once said I was her piece. Remember when you used to say I made you feel safe? I asked. Yeah, she said. Safe. Not excited. The word excited hit me like a quiet bullet. I looked at her, really looked, and realized I didn't recognize her expression anymore. There was something guarded in her smile, something rehearsed. Who are you trying to impress lately? I asked. Her laughter was short, sharp. Oh my God, you're unbelievable. It's always about another man with you now. It wasn't always like that, I said. It became that because you changed. No, Ethan, she said coldly. You stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as your comfort blanket. I blinked, unsure how to respond. I thought that's what love was, comfort. She shook her head. Love shouldn't feel like routine. Her words stayed with me long after she left the room. The next morning, she texted, sorry for last night. Work's been stressful. I wanted to believe her. I typed I understand and hit send. But deep down, I didn't understand anything anymore. That weekend, we went to a friend's birthday dinner. She dressed beautifully, hair done, eyes glowing, but none of it was for me. I could tell by how she kept checking her phone. "Can you put it away for an hour?" I whispered while everyone laughed around us. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Relax. It's work." "Always work," I muttered. Later, when we were driving home, she said, "You made things awkward tonight." "How?" "You kept staring at me like I was hiding something." "Were you?" I asked quietly. She laughed bitterly. "You really don't trust me at all, do you?" "I want to," I said. "But every time I try, you push me away." She turned to the window. "Maybe we've just outgrown each other." The silence after that was heavier than any argument we'd had. That night, while she showered, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I didn't mean to look. But the screen lit up with a message, "Can't stop thinking about earlier." No name, just a gray chat bubble. My chest tightened. I stared at it until it faded. When she came out, I asked, "Who's texting you this late?" Her eyes narrowed. "You went through my phone?" "I didn't. It just lit up." "Then why are you asking?" "Because it didn't look like work." She smirked. "You're unbelievable." "Who was it, Clara?" "None of your business." I froze. "None of my?" "You're my girlfriend." "Exactly. Not my owner." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "So that's where we are now?" She crossed her arms. "You're making drama out of a message. You seriously need help, Ethan." Her words hit harder than they should have. I felt something in me shrink. "I just want the truth," I whispered. "Well, maybe the truth is that you're suffocating me." I didn't answer. She grabbed her phone, turned away, and said, "I'm sleeping in the other room tonight." The click of the door was soft, but it echoed through my chest. I sat there for hours, trying to convince myself it didn't mean what I thought it did. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Dylan was just a coworker. Maybe I was just paranoid. But when I saw her the next morning, hair damp, dressed early, eyes avoiding mine, I knew the truth already. She kissed my cheek quickly, like a formality. "Don't wait up," she said. "I won't," I replied. She hesitated, maybe expecting me to stop her. But I didn't. I just watched her leave. When the door closed, I whispered to myself, "I wanted to believe you." And for the first time, I realized I wasn't talking to her anymore. I was talking to the ghost she'd already become. It was past midnight when I realized she'd fallen asleep beside me. Her breathing was steady, soft against the pillow. The glow from her phone lit up the room in brief flashes. I wasn't trying to look, I really wasn't. But the notification blinked again, and the preview stayed long enough for me to read it. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again, Redheart, Dylan." For a second, my mind went blank. The air felt heavier, like someone had turned gravity up a notch. I didn't move. I just stared at the screen, waiting for it to fade back to black, praying I'd misread it. But I hadn't. My hands felt numb. My throat tightened. I swallowed hard, my pulse loud in my ears. Clara shifted in her sleep, her hand brushing against my arm. I froze. I didn't touch the phone. Not yet. I just stared at it like it was a weapon that had finally gone off. "Last night," the words echoed, circling my mind, refusing to settle. I told myself it had to be a joke, a misunderstanding, maybe Dylan was some inside joke from work, some harmless message. But the heart emoji burned in my vision. I picked up the phone slowly, like it might explode. My fingers hesitated above the screen. The lock opened with her birthday. I didn't even think, just muscle memory. And there it was. The chat. Dylan Redheart. I scrolled. Each message was another crack in the wall I'd been building for months. "You looked incredible tonight. I can still smell you on me. Wish I could wake up next to you instead." My vision blurred. I blinked, trying to breathe quietly. Clara stirred slightly but didn't wake. I kept scrolling, each word slicing deeper. There were pictures, blurry, dim, hotel light in the background. Nothing explicit, but enough. Enough to kill what was left of me. She had typed things to him she hadn't said to me in months. Little hearts. Jokes. Plans. Friday again? I'll tell him I'm working late. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I set it down gently on the nightstand, staring at her sleeping face. She looked peaceful, almost innocent. How could she look so calm while my world was disintegrating right next to her? I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake her, throw the phone, demand answers, but instead, I just sat there, staring. The silence in the room was unbearable. The clock ticked faintly. The shadows shifted. I could hear her breathing, steady and calm. I whispered, barely audible, "How could you?" She stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. "Ethan? Why are you awake?" I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Something in my stare made her frown. "What's wrong?" she murmured, sitting up slightly. I nodded toward the phone. "You got a message." Her gaze flicked to it. For a fraction of a second, her expression broke, a flash of panic, quickly replaced by control. "You went through my phone?" I shook my head slowly. It lit up. I saw it. She swallowed. "Ethan." "Don't," I said quietly. My voice surprised me. It was calm, too calm. "Don't lie. Please." She looked down at her hands. "It's not what you think." I laughed softly, bitterly. "Then what is it, Clara?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like what I think." She bit her lip, tears forming but not falling. "I didn't mean for it to happen." "Didn't mean for what?" I asked. "The messages? The hotel rooms? Or the part where you kept coming home to me like nothing happened?" She winced. "Ethan, please." I shook my head. "No. Just answer me. Is he worth it?" Her silence was the longest sound I'd ever heard. Finally, she whispered, "I don't know." I stared at her, waiting for something, an apology, an excuse, a scream. Anything. But there was nothing. Just that one pathetic truth, "I don't know." I leaned back, my chest tight, my mouth dry. "You could have just told me you weren't happy." "I was scared," she said softly. "You were always so good to me. I didn't know how to hurt you." I let out a slow, trembling breath. "So you hurt me anyway." She covered her face, sobbing quietly. I didn't reach for her. I couldn't. My hands wouldn't move. My heart didn't know what to do with her tears anymore. "I swear it didn't mean anything," she whispered. "It just happened." "People don't just happen," I said. "You chose it." "I was lonely," she said. "You were always working, always distracted." Dylan made me feel seen. Her words stung, not because they weren't true, but because once, I used to make her feel that way. I looked at her again. The woman crying in front of me wasn't the same one who used to fall asleep on my chest and whisper she couldn't imagine life without me. This one had secrets under her skin and someone else's scent in her hair. "Say his name," I said quietly. She blinked. "What?" "Say his name out loud. I want to hear it." Her lips trembled. "Dylan." The word hung in the air like smoke. I nodded. "Good. Now it's real." She reached out, but I pulled my hand back. "Don't," I said again, softer this time. "Ethan, please, I'm sorry." I looked at her phone on the nightstand. The screen had gone dark again, like nothing had happened. Like it was all just another night. "Do you love him?" I asked. She hesitated. "I don't know what I feel anymore." That was worse than a yes. I stood up slowly. My legs felt heavy, my body hollow. I grabbed my jacket from the chair. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I don't know," I said, echoing her own words. "Maybe I'll figure it out on the way." She reached for my arm. "Please don't go. We can talk in the morning." I looked at her one last time. You already talked enough, just not to me. Her tears streamed down, and for a second, I almost stayed. But the sight of her phone on the pillow killed that thought. I walked to the door. She called my name once, soft, trembling. I didn't turn around. When I reached for the doorknob, I realized my hands had stopped shaking. The numbness had turned into something else, something colder, cleaner. Before I left, I whispered, "You'll never have to be scared of hurting me again." Then I opened the door. The quiet click that followed was the sound of my heart closing for good. I hadn't slept properly in days. The nights felt heavier than usual, like the air itself was pressing down on me. The bed was too big now. Too quiet. I used to fall asleep to Clara's soft breathing beside me, her hair spilling across my shoulder. Now, all I heard was the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional sound of a car passing outside. The glow of the streetlight leaked through the curtains, landing on the pack of cigarettes I'd bought after 3 years of quitting. I stared at them for a long time before giving in. I stepped out onto the balcony, lighter in hand, and let the first drag burn my throat. That's when my phone buzzed. "Ryan. Still up?" he texted. "Yeah," I replied. "Can't sleep." He called almost instantly. "You sound like hell, man." "I feel worse." "I told you not to check her phone," he said. "You were looking for pain." "I wasn't looking," I muttered. "It found me." There was a long pause. I could hear him exhale through the phone. "You didn't lose her, man. She lost you." I let out a short, bitter laugh. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple," he said. "You gave her everything. She threw it away. That's on her, not you." I flicked the cigarette, watching the ashes fall. "You ever notice how people always say, 'You'll be okay,' right after your life falls apart? Because you will be," he said. "You just don't believe it yet." I didn't answer. My throat tightened, and I tried to focus on the night sky instead of the hollow ache in my chest. Ryan's voice softened. "You loved her, Ethan. That's not something to be ashamed of. What she did doesn't erase what you gave." "I keep replaying it," I said. "The way she looked at me when I asked about him. She didn't even cry." "She's already gone, man," he said quietly. "She checked out long before you saw that message." The truth stung. I took another drag. "I keep wondering what I did wrong." Ryan sighed. "That's your problem. You think everything's fixable if you just try hard enough. Some people don't want to be fixed. Some people just leave." I leaned against the railing, eyes burning. "I thought love meant staying." "Love does," he said. But she wasn't in love anymore. His words sat heavy in my chest. I didn't want to admit he was right, but deep down, I already knew. I whispered, "It's strange. I keep expecting her to text. To say she's sorry." "She won't," he said. "And even if she did, would it change anything?" I didn't answer. Maybe I didn't want to. Maybe I was still too cowardly to face the truth that nothing she could say would make me trust her again. "You need to stop punishing yourself," he said. "She made her choice. Now you make yours." "What choice?" I asked quietly. "To move on." I laughed softly, without humor. Move on. Sounds easy when you're not the one staring at the empty side of the bed every night. "I know it's not easy," he said. "But you either stay broken, or you start rebuilding. You can't do both." I let the words sink in. The smoke curled upward, disappearing into the dark. "You ever notice," I said, "how silence feels louder after heartbreak?" "Yeah," he said. "Because it's full of everything you wish you could say." That hit harder than I expected. "I miss who we used to be," I admitted. "Not her, exactly. Just, us." Ryan's tone softened. "That's normal. You're mourning a version of yourself that existed with her. But that guy doesn't have to die, man. He just changes." I stayed quiet for a moment. My cigarette burned down to the filter. "You always know what to say, huh?" "I've had practice," he said. "Remember when Jenna left me? I sounded just like you." Yeah, I said faintly. You were a mess. And look at me now, he said. Still breathing. Still laughing. You'll get there too. I don't know, I said. It feels like something inside me cracked. It did, he said. That's how the light gets in. I closed my eyes, letting the night wind brush against my face. For the first time in days, I felt something small but real. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was just exhaustion. You think she's happy? I asked. Probably not, Ryan said. People who betray don't find peace. They just chase distractions. I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see me. I still love her, I confessed. He didn't respond right away. Yeah, he finally said. That's okay. Love doesn't disappear overnight. But one day, you'll wake up and realize it doesn't hurt the same anymore. The thought gave me a strange kind of comfort. I hate how quiet it is, I said. Then fill it, he said. Music, writing, gym, whatever. Just don't sit in it too long. I tried writing, I said. All that came out was her name. Then keep writing it until it means nothing, he said. I smiled weakly. You should be a therapist. Hell no, he said. I just don't like seeing you destroy yourself. The line went silent for a moment. I heard him exhale again. Promise me something, he said. What? Don't text her. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Let the silence do the talking. I hesitated. I won't, I said quietly. I'm done chasing ghosts. That's my guy, he said. Now go get some sleep. After we hung up, I stood on the balcony a little longer, staring at the horizon that hadn't changed, even though everything else had. The night breeze smelled faintly of rain. I crushed the cigarette in the ashtray and whispered to myself, you didn't lose her. She lost you. The words didn't feel entirely true yet, but they were beginning to. Inside, the clock ticked past 3. I crawled into bed, the sheets cold against my skin. For the first time since that night, I didn't reach for my phone. I just lay there, breathing in the silence. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was the beginning of it. I sat at my desk with a blank sheet of paper in front of me. The kind that almost dares you to bleed onto it. My hand hovered over it for minutes that felt like hours. The cigarette beside me burned slowly, its smoke curling toward the ceiling like a ghost that wouldn't leave. I whispered to myself, all right, Ethan. Just right. The first words came out shaky, like a confession. Clara. I'm not writing this to change anything. You made your choice, and I finally understand I can't fix what doesn't want to be healed. I paused. My throat tightened. The pen trembled between my fingers. I spent weeks replaying everything, our first date, our first fight, the quiet nights we thought meant forever. I kept asking myself what I did wrong. But I've realized something, your betrayal wasn't about me. It was about you. I leaned back, exhaling deeply. Was it really that simple? I muttered under my breath. My phone buzzed with a notification. I didn't check it. For once, I didn't care who it was. You wanted excitement. You called it freedom. Maybe I became too predictable, too safe. But that's what love is, Clara, consistency, not chaos. My handwriting looked angry, pressed too hard into the page. I tried to steady myself. You said I didn't understand you. Maybe I didn't. Maybe you didn't either. The silence of the room pressed against me. I thought I'd cry again, but I didn't. I was too tired. There was a time when I would have begged you to stay. But now, I don't want your return. I want peace. And to find it, I have to forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I do. I whispered the words as I wrote them, like saying them out loud would make them real. Because I do. The pen stopped again. My eyes drifted toward the window. The city looked smaller tonight, like it was finally shrinking back to a size I could live in again. I continued. You took parts of me when you left, but I've realized something beautiful, I can grow them back. Maybe differently. Maybe stronger. I smiled faintly at that. Yeah, I said quietly. Stronger. You'll probably never read this. That's okay. Some goodbyes don't need an audience. I put the pen down for a moment and ran a hand through my hair. The air smelled faintly of smoke and rain. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn echoed, a reminder that everything keeps moving, even when you don't. I picked up the pen again. I forgive you, Clara. But I'm also forgiving myself, for staying too long in something that was already over. I stared at that line. It felt right. It felt final. You won't hear this goodbye. You won't even know I wrote it. But maybe that's how it's supposed to be. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. Clara. Her name flashed like a wound reopening. I stared at it until the screen went dark. Then I opened her contact, hovered over delete, and whispered, goodbye. The screen blinked, and her name disappeared forever. For a moment, the silence that followed didn't feel empty, it felt earned. I folded the letter carefully, not to send it, but to keep it. A reminder, not a wound. I placed it inside a drawer I rarely opened, right next to the photos I wasn't ready to burn yet. As I closed it, I murmured, that's enough. I walked to the balcony and lit another cigarette. The night air was cold, but it didn't sting like before. I took a drag and looked up at the stars, faint, barely visible through the haze of the city, but still there. Still shining. Ryan's words echoed in my head from nights ago, you didn't lose her, man. She lost you. For the first time, I believed him. I spoke into the night, not expecting an answer. You know, Clara. I used to think love was about holding on. Now I think it's about knowing when to let go. The wind carried my voice somewhere I couldn't follow. Maybe that's where it belonged. I finished the cigarette, crushed it, and looked around the apartment one last time. The boxes by the door were sealed. Tomorrow I'd leave this city, this place, this version of me that waited for her to come back. I whispered, you won't find me here anymore. The mirror across the room caught my reflection, tired eyes, uneven stubble, a faint hint of peace. For the first time in months, I didn't see a broken man. I saw someone surviving. I turned off the lights, leaving the letter in the dark. In the quiet that followed, I finally felt something I hadn't in so long, stillness. Not the heavy kind that crushes you, but the soft kind that heals. As I lay in bed, I thought about all the words I'd never get to say to her. All the apologies I'd rehearsed in my head that no longer mattered. And I smiled. Because forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about saying the right words, it was about finally letting the wrong ones stop echoing. I turned on my side, eyes half closed, whispering the final line to the empty room. I didn't need closure from her, I just needed to stop reopening the wound. When people say time heals everything, they don't mention how slow it actually moves. Years slipped by, not dramatically, but quietly, like rain that doesn't stop, just softens. I didn't wake up one morning suddenly fine. It was more like one day I noticed I could breathe without thinking of her. Work became my anchor. I poured myself into long hours, into projects that made me feel useful again. The silence in my apartment stopped echoing like punishment and started sounding like peace. Ryan used to drop by every few weeks. You're actually smiling now, he'd said one night, leaning against my kitchen counter. I'm trying, I told him. Trying's better than drowning. He clinked his beer bottle against mine. You deserve someone who matches your quiet. I didn't believe him then. I'd stopped expecting anything romantic. I'd convinced myself love just wasn't my language anymore. Then, one evening at a small work event, I met Emily. She worked in marketing for another firm, nothing dramatic, no spark-filled cliché moment. She laughed when I accidentally spilled coffee on a brochure and said, well, at least you're consistent. That stain really ties the design together. I laughed for real, not the polite, hollow laugh I'd been giving people for years. We ended up sitting at the same table. She talked about her job, her dog, how she hated overcomplicated people. You know those types, she said, rolling her eyes. The ones who create storms just to feel alive. I smiled faintly. Yeah, I said. I used to know one of those. What happened, she asked. She drowned herself in her own storm, I said quietly. I just got out before I did too. Emily didn't push. She just nodded, like she understood that silence sometimes means respect. After that night, we kept running into each other, sometimes by accident, sometimes not. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into, hey, want to walk a bit? She listened more than she talked, but when she did, it was never to fill space. She'd ask things like, what makes you feel at peace, or, do you still write? I hadn't written anything since Clara. My journal had turned into a graveyard of unfinished sentences. But one night, sitting across from Emily, I found myself saying, maybe I'll start again. Then do, she said. Sometimes words are how we forgive ourselves. It wasn't love at first sight, it was something slower, something I could trust. A few months in, she looked at me across a small diner table and said, you don't have to hold your breath with me, you know. I blinked. What do you mean? You sit like you're waiting for something to break, she said softly. I'm not going anywhere. I wanted to believe her. I really did. And for the first time, I allowed myself to try. Years later, we were married. No grand wedding, no fireworks. Just close friends, a quiet song, and two people who didn't need to pretend. Ryan gave a toast, the kind that makes people laugh before it makes them cry. To Ethan, he said. The man who finally stopped fixing broken people and decided to build something whole instead. Everyone clapped. Emily squeezed my hand under the table. When we moved into our new home, she painted the kitchen walls yellow because gray makes mornings sad. I didn't argue. I just watched her dance barefoot on the newspaper-covered floor, humming to a song I didn't recognize. One evening, she found an old notebook tucked away in a box. My handwriting covered its pages, letters I'd written to Clara but never sent. She looked at me, holding it carefully. Do you want me to throw this away? I thought for a long moment. No, I said. Keep it. It's part of who I was. Emily nodded, set it back gently, and kissed me on the forehead. Good, she whispered. Because you're not defined by your scars, but they still tell your story. When our daughter, Lily, was born, I cried. Not from fear or shock, from peace. Holding her felt like holding forgiveness. I remember Emily whispering, you okay? Yeah, I said. I'm just grateful. Welcome to the club, she said, smiling through tears. Lily had Emily's eyes, calm, open, curious. Sometimes I'd hold her and think about all the versions of me that wouldn't have believed this moment could exist. One night, after Emily and Lily fell asleep, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. The air smelled like rain. My phone buzzed, a message request. It was from Clara. The preview read, hey. I saw your wedding pictures. You look happy. I'm glad you found what you deserved. I stared at the screen for a while. There was no anger, no ache. Just quiet understanding. I didn't open it. I didn't delete it either. I simply turned the phone face down, the way she once did, and let the silence speak. When Emily came out later, wrapping her robe around her, she asked, you okay? Yeah, I said. Just thinking. About what? About how lucky I got. She smiled. You really did. We sat there in the dark, her head resting on my shoulder. The wind moved softly through the trees. Years kept passing. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was real, laughter over burnt pancakes, late-night talks when Lily couldn't sleep, quiet drives where words weren't needed. One afternoon, Lily came home from school holding a drawing. It's us, she said proudly. I looked at the picture, stick figures with big smiles and a yellow sun. That's beautiful, I told her. That's Mommy, that's me, she said, pointing, and that's you, because you always look calm. I laughed. Calm, huh? That's new. Emily smiled from the kitchen. She's right, though. You are calm. You carry peace now. I glanced at her, realizing she was right. Somewhere between heartbreak and healing, I'd become someone new, someone I didn't have to explain to anyone. That night, lying beside Emily, I said quietly, you know, I used to think love was supposed to be chaos. She turned to me. And now? Now I think it's supposed to be simple. Not easy, just simple. She smiled, half asleep. Good. Because I'm too tired for chaos. We laughed softly. As I watched her drift off, I thought about Clara one last time, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. She was the storm that broke me, but Emily was the calm that built me back up. And maybe that's what life is, breaking until you learn how to build again. I reached over, turned off the lamp, and listened to the steady rhythm of Emily's breathing. I didn't need to chase closure anymore. It had found me, in the warmth beside me, in the laughter down the hall, in the quiet peace of knowing I'd finally become someone new. It was past midnight when my phone buzzed. The sound cut through the quiet hum of the ceiling fan. Emily and Lily were asleep beside me, her soft breathing, my daughter's small hand resting over mine. For a moment, I thought it was just another late-night work email. Then I saw it, message request from Clara. My thumb hovered over the screen. The name looked surreal, almost ghostly after 5 years of silence. I stared at it, my chest tightening, not from longing, but from memory. I hesitated, then tapped. The message opened with uneven sentences, scattered like someone who didn't know where to begin. Ethan. I don't even know why I'm writing this. I guess I just need to say it, I made the worst mistake of my life. I blinked. My throat felt dry. He left me. The man I thought was my forever. I see you're happy now. I saw your pictures. You look peaceful. I wish I could go back. I wish I could fix everything. My eyes moved slowly across the words. Each one seemed to dissolve as I read it. I whispered under my breath, "You wish you could go back." Emily shifted slightly, her head brushing against my shoulder. I froze, afraid to wake her. Her warmth grounded me, real, present, nothing like the cold chaos I'd once lived in. I turned back to the message. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What I lost. What I threw away. You didn't deserve what I did. I exhaled softly, my thumb pressing the edge of the phone. 5 years ago, I would have dreamed of this, the apology, the regret, the validation. I used to imagine how it would sound, how satisfying it would feel. But now, all I felt was stillness. No anger, no joy. Just quiet understanding. I whispered, "You're too late, Clara." I didn't mean it cruelly. Just truthfully. My mind drifted, not to the fights, not to the betrayal, but to the silence that followed. To the years I rebuilt piece by piece, learning to smile again, learning to trust again. I remembered Emily's voice during one of our first dinners. She had said, "People don't break you, Ethan. You break yourself when you stop believing you can heal." I hadn't believed her then. Now, I did. The phone buzzed again, another message. "Please don't ignore me. I just need to say I'm sorry." I stared at the words for a long time, the small typing bubble flashing, disappearing, flashing again. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. For a split second, I considered replying. Just something polite, detached, "I hope you're doing okay." But the thought vanished as quickly as it came. I whispered, "No, Ethan. You don't owe her anything." The room was dim, lit only by the glow of the screen. I looked at Emily, her face peaceful, her hair slightly messy from sleep. Lily turned in her little bed beside us, mumbling softly, "Daddy." That one word dissolved whatever fragments of the past still lingered. I turned the phone face down. But my mind replayed Clara's message, her words dripping with remorse. I could almost hear her voice, shaky, desperate. "I see you're happy now." That line stuck. Not because it hurt, but because it was true. I was happy. Not the loud kind of happiness people post online. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need proving. I got up quietly, slipped out of bed, and walked to the balcony. The night air was cool, gentle. City lights flickered far away. I leaned against the railing and whispered to the dark, 5 years ago, I would have given anything for this message. Now I can't even find the will to respond. For a moment, I wondered if that made me cold, or just healed. I remembered the last words Clara ever said to me before leaving, "You'll miss me when I'm gone." She was wrong. I didn't miss her. I missed the man I used to be before her, trusting, open, naive. But even that version of me had evolved. Maybe that's what growing up is, I muttered. Realizing closure doesn't come from them saying sorry. It comes when you stop needing them to. The wind picked up slightly, carrying faint sounds from the street below, laughter, a car passing. Life kept moving, indifferent to the ghosts that tried to return. The phone buzzed again on the nightstand. Another message. "I hope someday you'll talk to me. I don't want to live with this guilt forever." I took a deep breath, walked back inside, and picked up the phone. I read the message twice, maybe 3 times. Then I smiled faintly. I typed one word. Peace. Then deleted it before sending. No reply would ever be enough, not for her, not for me. Because forgiveness isn't about answering someone's guilt. It's about recognizing that it no longer belongs to you. I turned off the screen, slid back into bed, and wrapped my arm around Emily. She stirred lightly. "Everything okay?" she murmured, half asleep. "Yeah," I whispered. "Everything's okay." She smiled, eyes still closed. "Good. You were up too long. Come back." "I'm here," I said softly. Her breathing evened out again, steady, calm. In the faint light slipping through the curtains, I looked at her, the woman who never asked for proof, never demanded penance. Just love. Just presence. Somewhere, a part of me silently thanked the universe for every wrong turn that led me here. For every heartbreak that shaped me into someone capable of recognizing peace when it arrived. I lay there, eyes open, feeling the quiet rhythm of the night. Clara's name still glowed faintly on the phone beside me, waiting for a reply that would never come. For the first time, I didn't feel haunted by her. I felt free. My final thought before sleep drifted in was simple, weightless. Maybe she needed this message more than I did. I turned to my side, pulling Emily closer. And for the first time in years, I fell asleep with no unfinished conversations left in my heart. The message sat on my screen for hours before I finally replied. "I hope you find peace, Clara." I did. I stared at those words, small and weightless, yet heavy enough to end everything that once burned through me. My thumb hesitated above the send button for a few seconds before I pressed it. Sent. The message turned blue. Then silence. I waited, not because I wanted her to respond, but because a part of me wondered how she would. I imagined her reading it, jaw tightening, maybe tearing up. I didn't want her to hurt, I just wanted her to understand what calm looked like. A minute passed. Then the typing bubble appeared. And disappeared. Then appeared again. I could almost hear her breathing, the same way I once could when she tried to explain herself after a fight. "Ethan, you really found peace?" I read it once, twice. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. "Yes," I typed. "It took a long time." "With her?" My chest tightened a little, not from guilt, but from the absurdity of it. Even now, she wanted to know if she'd been replaced. "With myself first," I replied. "Then with her." The typing bubble stayed for a long time this time, flickering like hesitation itself. "I thought you'd hate me forever." "I did," I wrote back. "For a while. But hate's exhausting. You always knew how to make me feel small." I blinked. That was the old tone, the quiet guilt mixed with accusation. I exhaled slowly, keeping my reply short. "I'm not trying to make you feel anything, Clara. I'm just being honest. Do you ever think about us?" That one hit a strange place. I looked at Emily's side of the bed. She was still asleep, her arm draped lightly across my pillow. The moonlight traced her outline. I typed, "Sometimes. But not like before." "What does that mean?" "It means I think of what we taught each other. Even if it hurt." There was another long pause. "You sound different." "I am," I replied. "I still remember our last night," she wrote. "You said, 'Fair enough,' and walked out. I hated you for being so calm." I smiled faintly at the memory. That night, she had screamed, begged, accused, and all I'd said was those two words. Fair enough. They weren't cruel. They were acceptance wrapped in finality. You're still calm, she added. It's infuriating. I'm not calm because I stopped caring, I typed. I'm calm because I finally learned how to. You really loved me, didn't you? More than I should have, I replied. But that's how we learn the limits of ourselves. Another pause. Longer this time. My phone screen dimmed. I tapped it awake. No new messages. Then. He never looked at me the way you did. I kept waiting for it, but it never came. I read it without emotion. Once, that kind of message would have broken me, now it just felt like someone else's story. I hope you stop waiting for someone to look at you like that, I typed. Start looking at yourself that way instead. You sound like a therapist. I smiled. No. Just someone who finally stopped bleeding from old wounds. She didn't reply for a while. The dots appeared and vanished, like she was typing a sentence, deleting it, then trying again. Finally. I don't know how to do that. I didn't either, I said. But peace isn't found. It's built. And what if I can't build it? Then you'll keep living the same year over and over, I wrote. Until you get tired enough to start. You always were good with words. Maybe, I typed. But this time, I mean every one of them. The next few minutes stretched into silence. I set the phone down on the nightstand, turned on my side, and looked at Emily again. Her breathing was slow and steady. 5 years ago, I'd begged for a message like this, something that said she regretted it, that she saw my worth. Now that it had arrived, I realized it didn't matter. Regret wasn't currency anymore. The phone buzzed again. I wish things had been different. Things were exactly what they needed to be, I replied. Otherwise, I wouldn't have learned who I am now. You really forgive me? Yes, I typed. I forgave you a long time ago. Just never said it out loud. Why not? Because forgiveness isn't about them, I wrote. It's about letting yourself walk away. Another pause. Then. You're happy, right? I am, I said. And she treats you well? She treats me how I should have treated myself back then, with patience. She didn't respond for a while. The dots came and went again. Fair enough, she finally wrote. I stared at the words, my lips parting slightly. The same 2 words I'd said to her years ago, when I walked away. Only this time, they came from her. Fair enough, I murmured, almost smiling. I typed back, yeah. Fair enough, again. She didn't reply. The typing bubble never reappeared. The silence stretched until it became permanent. I stared at the chat thread, our names, side by side, reduced to a few paragraphs that once would have decided my entire mood. Now it just felt like closure written in pixels. I thought about deleting the conversation, but then decided against it. It didn't hurt anymore. It didn't even sting. It was just proof that some endings don't need fire, just quiet understanding. I locked the phone and placed it back on the nightstand. Emily stirred again. You okay? She whispered, voice barely audible. Yeah, I said softly. Just, finished a conversation I didn't know I still needed. She half opened her eyes. With who? An old ghost, I said. She smiled sleepily. Did the ghost apologize? Yeah, I chuckled. And this time, I didn't try to save it. Emily's hand reached for mine under the blanket. Then it's over, she murmured. It's been over, I whispered. I just finally believed it. The room fell quiet again. The clock ticked softly. Outside, rain began tapping against the window, slow, rhythmic, peaceful. I watched the droplets slide down the glass and thought about how strange it was, how the person who once knew every part of me now existed only as words on a screen. There was no anger left. No bitterness. Just gratitude, not for what happened, but for what it taught me. I closed my eyes and whispered, peace isn't about getting even. It's about getting quiet. Emily murmured something unintelligible and nestled closer. I felt her warmth press against me, grounding me back in the present, the only place that mattered. I turned my phone face down, the last light from it fading. And for the first time since the night I said, "Fair enough," I understood what it really meant, not surrender, not defeat. Acceptance. The kind that doesn't ask for closure. The kind that just is. I looked at Emily one more time before sleep pulled me under and whispered, almost to myself, "Yeah, Clara, fair enough." It's funny how silence can feel full. Tonight, it wasn't empty at all, it hummed softly, like the world had finally exhaled. Emily had fallen asleep beside me. Her breathing was slow and peaceful, the kind of rhythm you don't notice until you've lived through chaos. I sat there for a while, phone in hand, reading the last message I'd ever gotten from Clara. Fair enough. That was it. No long apology. No plea. Just 2 words, the same ones I'd said years ago. I locked the phone and set it aside. My reflection stared back at me from the black screen. I didn't see the man who used to wait by the window or scroll through old photos, wondering what he'd done wrong. I saw someone who had finally stopped trying to rewrite a story that was meant to end. The door creaked softly. "Dad?" I turned. Lily stood there, hair a sleepy mess, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "What's up, baby?" I asked, smiling. "I can't sleep," she mumbled. "Bad dream?" She nodded. "The kind with shadows." I patted the bed. "Come here." She climbed in beside me and curled up, head against my chest. "Do shadows scare you?" I asked. "Sometimes," she whispered. "But you said shadows can't hurt me. They're just the dark parts of light." I smiled faintly. "That's right. You remember everything, huh?" "Emily says I'm like you," she said, yawning. "I think too much." "She's right," I laughed quietly. "But that's not a bad thing." Silence settled again. The kind of silence that doesn't need filling. "Daddy?" "Yeah. Were you ever scared of shadows?" Her question lingered longer than she knew. "I was," I said softly. "For a long time." "What did you do?" "I stopped standing in the dark," I whispered. She smiled sleepily. "That's smart." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I just got tired." Her breathing slowed. Within minutes, she was asleep again, small hand resting over mine. I stared at her, this little person who didn't exist in the world I once begged to save. The irony wasn't lost on me. Clara once told me, "You're too safe, Ethan. I need passion, danger, something unpredictable." I remember laughing back then. "Love doesn't need to be dangerous," I'd said. "It's supposed to feel like coming home." She'd rolled her eyes. "That's the problem. Home's boring." Now, years later, watching my daughter sleep beside my wife, I finally understood what she couldn't. Love isn't fireworks. It's a fireplace. It's not chaos. It's quiet. I brushed a strand of hair from Lily's face and whispered, "You'll understand someday, kiddo." Emily stirred beside me, half awake. "Is she okay?" "Yeah," I said softly. "Just a dream." She turned over, her voice heavy with sleep. "You should sleep too." "I will." She mumbled something about pancakes in the morning and drifted off again. I sat there a while longer, my mind wandering. There was a time I thought love had to burn. That if it didn't hurt, it wasn't real. Clara taught me that illusion, that intensity meant intimacy. But all it ever did was leave ashes. Emily, on the other hand, built something slow, steady, and unshakable. She didn't demand proof of love, she lived it. I remember one night, early in our marriage, I told her about Clara. Not the full story, but enough for her to understand why I sometimes went quiet. She'd listened, nodded, then said simply, "You don't owe me the past. Just show up for the present." That line stayed with me. Tonight, I realized I'd been doing exactly that, showing up. For her. For Lily. For myself. My phone buzzed once. A memory notification. 5 years ago today, weekend trip to the coast. A photo appeared, Clara laughing on the beach, wind in her hair, hand reaching for mine. I almost swiped it away, but instead, I looked at it. It didn't hurt. Not anymore. It just felt like watching a movie I'd once loved but outgrew. 5 years, I muttered. Feels like another life. I whispered it not with sadness, but with gratitude. Because if she hadn't left, I wouldn't be here. I got out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake them, and walked to the balcony. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of rain. The city lights shimmered in the distance. I lit a cigarette, one of the few habits I hadn't quite kicked. The flame flared, small and brief, before fading into a steady ember. Smoke curled upward, and I thought of the fire Clara once wanted, the kind that burns fast and bright. She got it. And it burned her life down. I exhaled slowly, watching the smoke dissolve. Peace doesn't look like triumph. It looks like this: quiet nights, soft breathing, small hands reaching for you in the dark. The kind of life that doesn't demand to be loud to be beautiful. I thought about her message one last time. The way she'd written, I made the worst mistake of my life. Maybe she had. But it wasn't my responsibility to carry it. We all pay for the lessons we refuse to learn early. Hers was losing the life she said she didn't want, the one I ended up building without her. The life she couldn't keep. I flicked the cigarette into the ashtray, the ember dying quietly. Inside, Emily shifted, murmuring something in her sleep. I smiled, whispered to no one in particular, "You wanted fire. I gave you warmth." The words hung in the air, soft and final. Then I added, "Turns out, warmth lasts longer." I closed the balcony door and returned to bed. Lily had rolled onto Emily's side, arms stretched across her. I slid under the covers, feeling the familiar weight of peace settle over me. The kind of peace that doesn't ask for closure, because it already has it. I reached for Emily's hand beneath the blanket. Her fingers instinctively curled around mine, even in sleep. "Good night," I whispered. Not to her. Not to Lily. To everything I'd finally let go of. And for the first time in my life, the silence felt like a reward.